Roger told me I talked too long. But he said this time I could, he'd give me 30 minutes. So I know he'll appreciate that. I'm gonna just talk about some of the fun things with Tom. Of course, we started out, both of us coached junior high against each other in Jacksonville. Then we were both high school coaches here and competed against each other. Then I left town, and Tom just dominated high school basketball. He was coach of the year 2 years in a row, had great teams, and he went to Cocoa Beach and founded their athletic program, their basketball program. And some of his players from Cocoa Beach are here tonight. And then when I got a chance to hire somebody, Tom, I thought he was the best high school coach in the state. And I did everything I could to get him, and he was making more money than I was making. So I got him more money than I was making. I needed somebody to so I had to pay him more than I was making to get him happy. But it was worth it. And Tom and I probably had about as close team of coaches as anybody could ever imagine. We were really just co-coaches. And one time he did talk me into doing something that didn't work, and I said something to him about it, and he said, well, hey, you're the head coach, you're supposed to decide what it's about. So from that point on, we never blamed each other. We just worked and did things, and we were so young, we made so many mistakes, but it's because we were working so hard, and a few things did work out. Now I'm going to tell you about his recruiting. I could tell you, Roger's limited my time, so Evansville is a great example. We had gone after 2 players from Harrison High School the year before, and one of the kids we went after went to Evansville College, and we lost him. But later on, they went back and told the other kids that, we should have gone to Jacksonville. Well, here's what Tom did. He got the assistant coach from Evansville, where Rex Morgan was playing, on our side. I don't know how he did it. And he got the leading newspaper writer in town to be on our side. So Tom was recruiting them with these guys, and before long, that's how we got Weddington and Nelson out of Harrison High School, and got Rex out. He had their coaches telling them they had to come play for us. So Tom was able to, one time he was at Louisville for the state championship there. That's the largest basketball tournament in the country. And Tom, nobody knew who Jacksonville was. And so he went up and he had them page him. He said, Tom Wasdin from Jacksonville University. Tom would, he really got us some publicity. And he would actually sign me up. He would say, Joe, you need to go here, or you need to go there. So I would go wherever he was. Well, it came to Artis Gilmore, and he had already taken me to see a couple of players in the state. And other people recruited them, but they would go slow. And we decided we needed quick players. They were good passers and good shooters, but they had to be real quick. And he took me to see a couple of guys in the state. I said, Tom, don't take me to see more of these big old guys that are slow. And he said, well, I got one up in North Carolina. I said, Tom, I don't want to go see somebody like that. He said, well, Joe, they've got a great barbecue place up there. So I went with him up to see Garden Rep, and I wasn't too interested in it. Now, before I should build this up a little bit, Tom spent so much time up there that people began to get suspicious. And so he bought a red sport coat and went in and ate food there like he was a booster. So anyway, I go up there every time, and that's kind of whole hunting and everything. But for the first play of the game, Artis comes out and catches somebody's shot and shoots from the corner. And before long, I'm up cheering for it. Score, Artis! But Tom just had a way of being one of the great recruiters of all time. He put our team together, and including Chipper Dublin up in New York. We went up there, and it was, there's more to that story, Roger, and I'm going to take a little longer than mine. Chipper came down there. He actually went to Chicago, Loyola, for a year, and they used to just bring in all these players. And he came down here to speak, and Tom and I took him to the downtown civic club. I don't know whether it was Lions or one, and they had never had a African American even in there, let alone to their club. And so Rod McIntyre got up and said something like, we played Florida, and if they beat us, we'll play them again. One of these days we're going to beat Florida. And then Chipper got up to speak, and he said, I went to Chicago Loyola before I came here. And he said, Chicago is a cold town. He said, it just gets so cold up here all the time. The people are cold, and nobody speaks to you. But he said, Jacksonville, it's a wonderful place down here. It's warm weather, and the people are warm. The people all come up and smile and tell me how nice they are that I'm here. And he said, I just can't believe what a great place Jacksonville is. And he became the hero of our town. Every one of those guys came up and shook hands with him. And he and all the teams and all the players we had, Chipper was one of the most popular we ever had here. But back to artists. we finally, Tom, I don't know the things that we did with them. They said, hey, don't call us, coach, on the phone. They got our phones broken. Now, Ernie Fleming, Tom had recruited Ernie Fleming in Providence. And Ernie didn't come with us, and he wrote Tom a letter. 3-page letter. He said, Tom, Coach Wasdin, he said, you were so nice to me when you recruited me. And he says, I have an aunt that lives down in Jacksonville. If you're at all still interested, I would like to come and transfer to Jacksonville. And P.S., I'd like to bring my roommate, Artis Gilmore. That is actually a true story. And so anyway, the president of the college, they were a junior college, and they had planned on Artis' junior year to be that year, and then a senior year to be a 4-year school. So the president took Artis on a trip over to Europe. Artis had better manners than I did. He'd eat the most best restaurants in Paris and Europe, seen symphonies play. So anyway, the next year we finally got close enough, and Tom would sneak into town and talk to him and everything. Anyway, we were able to get Artis. The only bad thing that ever happened to Tom was when we got Artis, Tom always had a firm grip, and he shook Artis' hand like that, and Artis didn't realize and just squeezed back, and Tom couldn't use his hand for 3 months. Anyway, after I left, Tom's teams took over, and again they dominated. People don't realize when you say you went to the tournament 3 years in a row. The NCAA tournament, then the only 24 teams win. You had to win the ACC of the Southeastern Conference to go. And the one year they only went to the NIT, that meant 16 teams went there. So those were the top 40 teams in the country. It was the year that North Carolina State beat Maryland in the ACC championship in 3 overtimes. And North Carolina State beat UCLA that year, and Maryland won the NIT. But Jacksonville came in 3rd, and they played Maryland tougher than anybody else that year. So Tom had some great teams at Jacksonville, and was a tremendous coach. But I'm going to tell you what happened. This is the last part of his life. Not much longer. Tom went to Jacksonville in business. And if you want to talk about accomplishments, Tom was named to an awful lot of things. Citizen of the Year. He's in 3 different Hall of Fames. There's so many things that he's won there. Chamber of Commerce named him the Citizen of the Year. The same with several foundations. But one of the most important things, and there's one other one here tonight, Roger Dobson is a friend of his. They have an award there they give to the Entrepreneur of the Year. It can't be somebody that's in a company and just goes to the top. It has to be somebody that starts out and builds their own business and becomes very wealthy and very prominent in the community. And Tom Wasdin was named that Entrepreneur of the Year in Jacksonville. Now, he and Susie Wasdin, this may be the thing he's the most proud of. He and Susie Wasdin, he's married a beautiful blonde down here named Susie, and they entertain and raise money. They have a beautiful penthouse on the Indian River down there in Cocoa Village. And Susie has anybody, when she has a fund